Hello everyone, and welcome to Retro Brick Reviews, where today we'll be taking a look at LEGO Star Wars Set 75267, the Mandalorian Battle Pack. This set includes 102 pieces, 4 minifigures, and costs about $15 in the United States. And without any further ado, let's begin, starting with the main focus of this set, the minifigures. Here is our first Mandalorian warrior. All 4 included in the set are completely different figures, but one thing they all have in common is their accessory, which is a standard LEGO stud shooter. If you don't know how these work, you just push down the lever at the top and it shoots out a stud. And that's that. Now for the figure itself, I think that this figure, and really all the ones in this set, but this one in particular as my favorite, look absolutely incredible. And it's just amazing that LEGO went to so much length to make 4 completely unique and very detailed minifigures for a set of this low price. Starting at the top, you can see that the Mandalorian Helmet is in a standard LEGO green color, and with some absolutely gorgeous metallic silver printing around the visor. And you can see that there is also just some gray printing there as well to look like wear and tear. And you can see that that is highlighted with the dark azure color, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. As well as the little dent up top, which is a nice touch. And you can also see that it does have a rangefinder piece attached up top, which can be folded down if you want your Mandalorian to be looking through their rangefinder. And judging by the visor shape, we can presume that this is meant to be a female Mandalorian because of the curved eyes rather than the straight T design. You can see that this figure uses the new thin cut capes LEGO introduced for Mandalorian minifigures. In this case, in dark brown, which you get 2 of in the set. So that's very nice. And then moving to the torso, it is just a fairly standard Mandalorian armor print that is duplicated across the figures in the set, but it is in the vibrant green color on a dark green base, and you just have little bits of metallic wear and tear on there, which look very nice, as well as the belt buckle, and below that you can see that there is a dark tan tunic, which, again, I just really like the look of. I like that LEGO did kind of diversify the Mandalorian figures as well, because you have, well, just as an example, you have tunics and you have different sorts of garbs across the different figures under the armor plating. It's just a nice touch. And then around the back, if we flip around the cape, you can see that you just have the design for the back of the armor and then just the belt attached at the bottom. Nothing too detailed, but it doesn't need to be because it's the back side of the figure, and it is almost always going to be covered up by the cape, and it's still pretty well done. But overall, an absolutely fantastic figure, both in terms of detail and just the color scheme of this figure with the different greens and blues is absolutely gorgeous in my opinion. Fantastic minifigure. Now let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have this dark orange helmeted Mando, and this design looks really nice as well, again making very good use of the metallic silver print color, just to really make these figures pop. As for the rest of the outfit, it doesn't pop as much because it is brown armor on a dark brown and dark gray jumpsuit, but I still think it looks fairly nice. And the other thing this figure is lacking is that it is the only of the 4 Mandalorians in the set to not have any leg printing. But despite that being a notable absence, I don't mind it too much. I don't know, just with the general colors of this figure, I think it works without any leg printing. Especially just that helmet looks absolutely fantastic. Again, dark brown cape, same as the last figure. The back printing is fairly similar, just with the different belt and the different little bits of wear on the armor. And something I should have mentioned with the last figure, so I'll mention it here, is that under the helmets, all 4 figures just have plain black heads, which in the context of the Mandalorian series makes perfect sense because the Mandalorian warriors do not reveal their faces at this point in time. It's part of their religion to keep the helmet on at all times, so it definitely makes sense to include plain black heads, and in this case, I'm all for it. There are other cases where LEGO has recently been including plain black heads for Mandalorian figures where it doesn't make sense and they should be including actual face prints, but this is a case where it totally makes sense, and I'm glad they did. So, yeah, this guy's another really nice figure. Not quite as detailed as the last one, but I think the helmet on this figure just really sells it very well. Fantastically well done. Our third Mandalorian has perhaps the least interesting color scheme, but I still think it looks quite nice. Where you can see you have the light bluish gray helmet with orange highlights around the visor, and this figure also gets a rangefinder up top. The armor plating on the torso is not as complete as some of the others. The armor is it's a bit more sparse, because you really just have the single plate up toward the chest, and then nothing below that. But I still think the figure looks very nice. You have this dark blue tunic, which, again, very nice printing. I like getting tunics for the Mandalorian figures. It's just a nice mix-up from the typical designs we get. This time around, we have a black cape, which is unique to this figure, to my knowledge, so that's a very nice inclusion. And around the back, the armor detailing is actually a little different, just more so than the others, just because of you have more detailed scuffs there, rather than just being around the edges. You have what look like a few scratches and even a direct dent. So that's very nice. And yeah, this is another really good Mandalorian figure. Not as exciting as the last two in terms of the color scheme, but definitely just as good in terms of detail. Our last Mandalorian figure is this very artsy chap who has gone with dark azure for the main coloration of his armor, but has definitely added some purple paint to his helmet as well, which is a very interesting look. But I think it definitely adds to this figure, combined with, again, the metallic silver around the visor. I know I keep talking about it, but that's because it looks absolutely gorgeous and really elevates these figures for me. The torso and legs don't use very much of it, but they still look quite nice. And you can notice that of the 4 figures in the set, this is actually the only one to have knee pads. So that's nice, and they are pretty unique designs, particularly that one on the right leg that almost looks like the classic no sign, just with the slanted bar going through it. That, again, is just a very unique design, and one that very much works for this figure and just looks really good. Around the back, you have this very unique olive green cape. I'm not really sure if this goes with the rest of the design, but I still like it. It's nice to get variation. And here you can see his back armor detailing. Yeah, so he's the last Mandalorian figure in the set. I think all 4 of them are really nice. If I had to pick a favorite, it would be that first one with the green armor, followed by the dark orange helmeted figure. And this would probably be number 3. I really like that helmet detailing. So those are all the figures in the set, though, so now let's look at the builds LEGO included. That's right, builds, because this is one of the few battle packs to actually include multiple builds, where we have a Mandalorian speeder bike, as well as a small terrain section. And starting with the speeder, just because it's the more interesting build, this is actually a remake of the speeder LEGO included with the original Clone Wars themed Mandalorian battle pack back in 2011. So it's neat to see sort of a redesign of that here, though it is in much less bright colors to reflect the sort of dingy setting of the Mandalorian. And you can see that the bike has a of handlebars and a seat. So, of course, you could just take one of your Mandalorian figures, sit them down on the bike, and just have them grab the handlebars, and they can ride. Now, this will cause the cape to become bent, because you do sort of have to fold it out behind them to get them to ride. But I don't really mind. I think this looks really nice, and thankfully, with these squarish types of capes, it's pretty easy to get them back into form if they do get bent from being kept in the same shape for a long amount of time. You can see that the bike has a lot of variation between the dark tan and the light gray to make it really look like all the paint is peeling off of the bike. You have a single dark red jet at the back. And then up toward the front, you have two more stud shooters, these being the plate-mounted shooters. And they work the same as the normal ones, so I won't demonstrate them here. But if you're flying this around, it is fairly easy, where you can just pick this up by the back and then put your fingers on the triggers, and you could easily fire off both of them at your target. Target not included. Our other build is just this very small and simple terrain element. Again, it's a reference to the original Mandalorian Battle Pack, which also included a small piece of terrain for the figures, though this is definitely a bit less mechanical and a lot more rocky, where it's basically just a bunch of slopes as well as a few brown pieces to maybe represent logs, and it's very, very simple, where you would just take this jumper and put one of your stud shooters there to act as a turret. And then around the back, you just have some studs where you could stand a minifigure to utilize your turret. And there are a few more studs at the back and a clip, so you could attach a stud shooter on, and maybe you could squeeze a second figure on. Though I think if you were going to put a second figure on this build, it might work better to have them running and just attach them up here. So that is really all there is to the Mandalorian Battle Pack. Those are the only two builds. It should be noted that with LEGO making different comparisons and remakes of stuff from the original Battle Pack, that set also had a third build, which was just a simple mounted turret. This set doesn't have that. It does have the area to mount a stud shooter on the terrain build, but it doesn't have like a tripod turret like the old one did. That's not really a complaint against this set, that's just an observation. So overall, I really like what LEGO did here with the Mandalorian Battle Pack. So now let's take a look at the box, instruction manual, extra pieces, and then we'll wrap up this review. This set has a standard LEGO $15 box, where it uses the 2019 to 2021 Star Wars design, which I'm not a huge fan of, with the all-white greebling and then the black logo. It just doesn't feel very much like Star Wars to me, but what I do like is that at the top right, you do have an image of a character to denote what sub-theme this is. Except, wait, no, they didn't do that. This has Darth Vader, even though this is based on The Mandalorian, and every other set from the Mandalorian sub-theme has an image of Din Djarin up at the top right. Oops! So, yeah, not a huge fan of this box. I do like the picture on the front where you have the different figures shown off, all in good amounts of prominence. And then around the back, you can just see another image of the figures and showing you how to use the stud shooters. So, yeah, not one of LEGO's best boxes, I have to say. Not just the marketing, but especially the fact that they messed up the character in the top right, where we have Darth Vader, who is dead by this point in the timeline. So that just doesn't make much sense. A definite miss on LEGO's part. Thankfully, I'm not a box collector, so the instruction manual for this set is pretty small, as you'd expect for a kit of this size. If we flip around to the back, it has 38 pages of building, Then you have an ad for how to get the digital instructions, an ad for all of the Winter 2020 LEGO Star Wars sets, and then an ad for LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, coming 2020. Well, I mean, I'm in 2022 and the game's not here yet, so, you know, whatever. And then at the back, you just have your parts list. Lastly is the extra pieces included with this set, where you can see that for starters, there are quite a few intentionally included extras, where you have 4 spare studs for your different Mandalorian stud shooters, and 2 spare studs for the speeder stud shooters. And then in addition, there is another pretty good amount of intentional, or maybe just necessary, extra pieces, where you have 2 spare rangefinders and 4 of these clone trooper visors. And the reasoning behind that is because, as we saw, of course, you do get a couple of rangefinders used on the figures in the set, but LEGO's rangefinders come in a pack of parts that was designed for clone trooper accessories that includes 4 of them and 4 visors. So every time LEGO wants to include even 1 rangefinder or 1 visor, they have to include 4 of each in the set. So as a result, you get a nice amount of extras. And then as for the actual spare parts of the set, there's really nothing to write home about. Just a couple of plates and slopes and a stud. Technic pin. Yeah. Nothing too exciting there, but again, I do think that all of those different clone trooper accessory bits are definitely a nice little just extra boost to this set, in addition to how good it already is. So, would I recommend LEGO Star Wars Set 75267, the Mandalorian Battle Pack? Absolutely. For $15, this set is absolutely fantastic. You get 4 completely exclusive minifigures that are all very detailed and just absolutely fantastic looking. 2 pretty nice builds, and to top it off, you even get a nice little bonus in the form of all of those clone trooper accessory pieces that you could use to customize different figures you have. So, yeah, there isn't really much to say on this set. I just would absolutely recommend picking it up. At this point, it's been out for about 2 years, though, so it is definitely nearing its retirement. So get the set while you still can. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all for watching this review. And for right now, this is Retro Brick Reviews, signing off.